Imagine you're standing in the center of a crowded room. All eyes are fixated on you, except that you're naked and everyone else around you is wearing clothes. To most of us, that sounds like our worst nightmares come true. To my next guest, that's just Tuesday. Of course, I'm talking about the fascinating world of being an art model. Say hello to my friend, Melissa Booth. Hi, I'm Red Younger, and this is It's My Job to Know Yours. Hey, Melissa, thank you so much for being here today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Of course, and it's my pleasure. First of all, you came in really far in the rain, so it means so much to me that you drove all the way out here. Where'd you come in from?
York County, Pennsylvania.
Damn, that is a far drive. I feel like we got to make this episode extra special. You took the trip all the way out here.
Sounds good to me.
I mean, but just knowing you, knowing what you do for a living, there's no way that it's not going to be an interesting episode. I think it's extremely fascinating. In your own words, tell me what an art model does.
We go to different variety of art classes, and we model. We are 90% of the time we are nude. We do sculpture classes. We do painting, drawing, just a variety of things.
Is it different from fashion modeling and regular modeling, or is it kind of all intertwined in the same kind of industry?
It can be intertwined, but I think art modeling itself it's a rarity, mainly because we have to take off our clothes. We're nude. And like you said, we're usually the only nude person in the room, unless there's another model with us.
Working alongside other art models as well, but for the most part, it's different from regular modeling.
Oh yeah, you're not on a catwalk.
Right.
You're not doing the fashion stuff. Occasionally, you might do that when students in our fashion design department need models. Then they reach out. But for the most part, we're just in class doing drawing classes and painting classes and sculpture.
Right, because generally, models are the tool or the instrument for whatever it is that they're modeling, right? So if you're a hand model, right, you're going to put this water bottle in your hand, and your hand is just the vessel.
Correct.
That's kind of showing the product. But when you're an art model, you are the product in a way. You are what they are sculpting. So it is different in that way because you're not wearing clothes. It's not about the clothes. It's literally about who is there in front of you at the time.
Exactly. With the life drawing, we sometimes we do have to do the hands and the feet, and that's all they want to see. They want to do different parts of the body. They may just focus on your head, so you have your clothes on in that time.
So look, you're modeling essentially yourself, right? Because you're not walking down a catwalk, you're not showing off a specific brand or clothing or anything else like that. So yes, it's about you. You're basically modeling the human body, but it's also not necessarily, or not even not necessarily, it's not at all sexual in nature. So it's
absolutely not. At least I don't believe so. You may get an occasional person that might, want you to get a specific pose and might be a little bit, you're thinking to yourself, oh, that's a little edgy. But art is edgy.
Yes.
So
that is true.
You got to look through that, and you got to look beyond that. And as an art model, just like an artist, you have to remove yourself from the art, from the work. And it itself becomes its own. We don't just stand there, and strike this pose or strike that pose. There's a lot more that goes into it. You have to think. Sometimes we're changing. The times that we're posing vary. You can do any minute from a 30-second pose to a hour pose, and not take a break. you intermittently, some of the classes, like you'll do what we call gestures. You may do, within a 20-minute block of time, you may do 100 poses in that time period. You may do 50 different poses in that time period.
And how much
because
time
you're
period
doing,
is this?
every 30 seconds you're changing your pose.
Can they
So
can they
it's kind
draw
of like,
you that quickly?
yes, they can. They do. We have one teacher who does it in 15-second intervals. And it's one of my favorite classes. And I love the instructor. She's amazing. But it's a lot of work. It's constantly movement. It's constant movement.
It's like a workout.
Oh, absolutely. It's a lot of yoga. I did dance as a young kid. I did dance and baton. So I kind of tap into that sometimes. And I've even had instructors say to me, "You've been a dancer before, haven't you?" And I'm like, "How can you tell?" Because they can just tell by your pose, whatever pose you make. And it's being able to determine what I'm doing in my pose and then capturing that on paper or in paint.
So you can do up to 100 poses in an hour?
Maybe not 100. I might have exaggerated
But
that little.
even so,
but it feels like
it's
sometimes.
a lot.
By
So
the time you go home, you're like, I'm done.
you're done.
I'm done.
You're wiped out. How do you decide what poses you want to do, or does the instructor tell you, okay, arms up, leg up, down?
Well, they may say something like they want a specific rhythm to the poses. In a pose where you're going to be sitting for a painting class or drawing class, a lot of times they will set up a scene and they'll have where they want you to sit a certain way, or they want you to be counterposto, where you're kind of like, you're not sitting up straight, your body's kind of twisted. Just to give them a kind of difference for the flow of the way the body moves. For the most part, though, we are choosing our own poses. And that's what I meant. Like when you're in a 15-second pose or a minute pose, and you know you have to do another one in another minute, about halfway through, you're trying to figure out what your next pose is going to be. So you're kind of like on the fly. And I like the Madonna song Vogue, where it says, strike a pose, there's nothing to it. Well, let me tell you, there's a lot to it.
There's a lot to it.
It's a lot on the body, and you have to use your mind, and you just want to, and you don't want to continually do the same thing either. So you want to kind of give it a variety, because they don't want to draw the same thing every, time. So you just kind of get your own knack of what you're going to do. And I don't think ahead. I think for myself, I think in the moment. Because if I'm thinking too far ahead, then it's like you get stiff and it's easier for me to just go with the flow and just do it, and winging it. Not really winging it, but it kind of feels like that.
So you essentially, as we were saying, so you're an art model. You're basically showing up to classes every day for different colleges.
Yes.
Posing, you said 90% of the time it's in the nude, but 10% you're, clothes with like portrait classes, etc. First and foremost, how does somebody even get into an industry like this? How did this come about for you?
Well, for me, it came about, my oldest daughter was attending an art college in York. And I took her to work back and forth. And I was dropping her off one morning, and this girl was like bringing all this stuff. I'm like, oh my goodness, what is she going to draw? And Victoria said, Mom, she's an art model. She's not drawing. And I said, art model? She's like, yeah, what do you think we draw? And I said, I don't know, fruit, stick figures. I don't know what you do. And I've always been kind of artsy myself, but not in that area. So I was like, yeah, okay. She looked at me and she said, Mom, you could do that. And I'm like, yeah, okay. No, I don't think so. She's like, Mom, I'm serious. You could do that. She knows me very well. So I guess she kind of knew something that, because 6 years later, here I am.
Go big or go home, right?
Yep.
But what is, meaning because like you assumed, I assume that you're drawing fruit. Why not draw fruit? Why go through all of this extra work of hiring these people to take their clothes off? Like, get a mannequin,
But because a mannequin is not the same as the human body. And the human body, even with just a slight twist, changes. The whole perspective of it, of the person or the body, just changes. the lights and the shadows, the parts of the body that, you know, protrude out, like your clavicle, things like that. Lighting plays a lot of role into it too. You can't get that with a mannequin.
Right.
You know, and they want human being, real life people. I mean, I'm not exactly what you call runway body material, in my opinion, of the typical, you know, model.
Right, but that's why
I've had 6 children.
First,
I'm over 50, you know, so it was like, but it's life. It's real human life. It's a real human body. And it's not the a lot of the, I don't want to say fakeness, but I don't think that's a word I'm looking for, but it's just different.
yeah, I mean, I do.
A fruit can't bend and twist,
Right.
You know, like a human can.
100% fruit. I mean, you know, like it definitely comes in different shapes, but it's
not as interesting.
It's not as interesting. It gets boring, and I think that like we can get very fixated on the nudity part, but as you said very wisely, you got to remove yourself from the art, and you essentially are I wouldn't say a canvas because they're not painting on you, but you're like a tool, a vessel for it. And there's something so real and raw about completely, you know, stripping all those layers away. And as you said, like,
Right.
you did have 6 kids. You're a real human being with curves, with, you know, age, with everything. And that is beautiful, right?
Right.
Like, a lot of times, like, these runway models, you know, no shame to anyone or anything or whatever it is, but from an artist, you and I'm not considering myself an artist. I've recently dabbled. I started dabbling in paint. I've been learning how to paint lately. It's been a really fun hobby. My sister got me into it. She's actually becoming an art therapist, and she was the one who actually told me about art models because she's worked with them and we had discussed it a little bit, and she was like, honestly, in your very first class, in the very first few minutes, you think about the nudity, and then you just get to work.
Yeah.
And you're just focused on the shadows and the shapes and the lighting and getting it right and making sure that it flows correctly. And
Right.
you know, it's like being able to remove the stigma of the nudity. Because for some reason, I don't know why the world is so fixated on it. You know what I mean? Like, you hear nudity and people like go screaming for the hills.
Yeah, I don't understand it. The human body's beautiful. I don't care if you're 90 or if you're you know, 9. Not saying that a 9-year-old's body you should be looking at in that way, but it's just that it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
You grow, so everything, you know, shifts, and it just, it's not something that you should be afraid of. Part of that, I think, is just the repressed society. When it comes to, you know, taking your clothes off, it's like, ooh, that's taboo. What is wrong with them? How could they do that? And why not? Somebody has to. But it's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, churches are full of all but nude sculptures and statues that we idolize, and they were a human being that someone sculpted from.
Very true. I think what was that? Because, you know, I grew up Orthodox Jewish, right? So I did know this about, you know, the churches with, like, you know, Jesus on display. And I forgot, I was like watching a sitcom once or something, and they were like, he was talking about, like, he's like, and as a gay man, you know how hard it is to focus in church when you're staring at Jesus's abs or something like that, you know?
Wow.
And I forgot what show it was from, but it's true. Like, in a lot of these religious places, you know, ultimately they try to repress sexuality. They try to repress, you know, make sure, like, especially when it comes to women.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, in the Jewish world, where the way that I grew up, it's very, very difficult because, you know, we grew up Orthodox. All my sisters and mom, you know, growing up, they wore a wig. They weren't allowed to show their hair. They're not allowed to show a collarbone. They're not allowed to. They got to wear, you know, the skirts. They got to wear everything down to their sleeves. Extremely covered up, and they're very, very, very big on modesty.
Right.
Now, I'm not here to have religious debate one way or another, but there is something to be said about that of what is the reason that people are trying to cover up so much and keep so much hidden, because the human body, as you said, is beautiful in every shape, in every way. As humans evolve and change and grow, skin color. I mean, look at my
absolutely.
Logo here. I had my little
Yeah.
brother design this for me. Leslie, thank you. Shout out to you. And I knew that I was like, look, I need different genders, different ages, different skin tones. You know, my favorite person, the face of my thing is probably the astronaut woman, because I got this podcast started. The idea came from when I met someone in NASA, and I was like, I want the astronaut to be an African American woman with natural hair, with natural looking, whatever,
Right.
because we are a diverse people. We're, you know, a diverse society,
Yeah.
and like that's what makes us all beautiful. It
Right.
really does.
Absolutely.
And if you're an artist and you can capture that and you can create curvy women, tall men, short people, long, there's so much to do and to create in it from an artist perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
So as you said, your daughter was, you know, kind of ignited this thing in you.
Yeah, she kind of planted the seed. And then we were visiting a family member of mine that actually taught for 50 plus years in Baltimore in an art college. And I was telling him about it, and he said, well, if you're interested, I can pass your name along. And at first I was just like, yeah, okay. Then I thought about it, and I thought, well, it's interesting. So I fill out the application and got the job, and 6 years later I go to about 10 different schools in the Baltimore area. Right now we're not doing that because of the pandemic, so we're doing it through Zoom.
Really?
So we're Zooming.
I
in some
actually was
classes.
curious about that.
Yeah.
Are you doing nude
Zoom.
art modeling over Zoom?
Not nude.
Not nude. I was
No.
gonna say, because it gets
No.
dicey
No,
over
we
the
didn't
internet.
we're not doing it nude, but we get a bathing suit, bodysuit, something that we can get close enough that they can see the good percentage of our bodies. Yeah, I had to set up a home studio. So
Really?
that was kind of cool. And I like that too, because in this aspect of using the Zoom, I mean, I miss the interpersonal parts. I mean, I miss all of my friends, and a lot of them now are not going to be there because of different reasons. But it's a chance for us as the model to then bring our own creativity to the platform, so to speak, because we can create our own, even though we create our own poses when we're doing it. It's in an anesthetic, the school kind of thing. When they do the scenes, it's the instructor that's setting all that up. Now with Zoom, I'm able to kind of show off my own talents as an artist and set up my own scenes and create the own backgrounds that they can paint from besides just me.
I love that.
So-
I love that like you're able to create like your own sort of creativity
Yeah,
through
our own
it.
stage.
And I love it even more that you consider yourself an artist.
To me, I call it performance art. It's part of performance art. It's just not, you're not dancing and singing.
Yeah,
You're
I mean,
just
100%.
voguing it.
Podcasting is also a performance art on some level,
Absolutely.
you know? And like, I have a hard time. I always didn't consider myself to be like an artistic person because I didn't know how to like draw and paint. And
Oh,
then it turns
art
out,
is way beyond.
yeah, it's way beyond, because I never had, and now like I've gotten into painting, but I always did, acting, photography, this podcasting, writing, all sorts of different creative outlets. I do have that in me, and it's
Yeah.
like I'm unleashing that inner artist, and I'm like, oh, it's
Creative
here.
arts.
Yes. So even just posing, like I get like uncomfortable posing for pictures. I mean, I
so
do
do
it.
I.
Really?
I cannot. I don't like my picture being taken. I really don't. And that's what I meant about like. At first, it's like, oh my goodness. When I first started, and I would see what they would depict, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, I'm not that skinny, and I'm not that big. In fact, one student, actually, I called one student, wrote on the paper, the big one, and I saw it. And then he quick changed his paper, and I just looked at him and I said, it's okay. You're absolutely, because he felt bad. And I'm like, you're absolutely fine. Because for me, it was a kind of a moment where I had to say, I don't know how I feel about this. And then I went and talked to my supervisor, who was wonderful, the woman that is part of the model coordinator. And we had a conversation, and I was fairly fresh there. I'd only been there like just a few classes. And then it was at that point where I realized, you know what, it's not about me. It's about what they see. You know, one student may have you looking differently than another student, but that's the whole point of being an artist. Not all are going to be the same. Not everything's going to look the same. And you don't always want it to be anyway. You know, some of my favorite ones are the abstract ones, where I've got an eyeball up here and a leg crossed over or something.
They do that?
Oh yeah, they get very creative. They are. They're not always. Not everything is just what you see.
Right.
So
I really love that. It's like that's literally the definition of removing yourself from the art, right? Where it's like, all right, if this guy is an artist and he's in art school and he's painting an art model and he wants to title his art the big one or whatever it is,
then be it.
Here I am, right? Like in all of me versus someone else. All right, this is the skinny one, versus this is the tall one. And then every human being has some sort of insecurity.
Oh, absolutely.
People just are. We especially in today's day and age with social media, and I mean, I know that you're not really on Instagram, you're on Facebook, but you see it. People are always posting pictures and this and that, and it's such a quick turnaround, and it's all about the likes and the comments and the interactions.
Oh, absolutely.
And all that, and it takes a lot of and aside from the social media world that we're living in, people's self-esteem is going down from it, when in reality it should be celebrating, like we said, the different people, the different shapes, the different whatever. And like, first and foremost, like, I have so much respect for what you do.
Oh, thank you.
I'm thinking about the people in my life, especially the women in my life, and I can't think of a single woman that I know who really has the guts, regardless of how they look, to walk into a room, sit down in front of all these people, especially if they are all college students who are younger, and just take off their clothes and be like, here I am. This is me. Yeah. It's got to be empowering.
It is. It is. I remember the first class that I had to do nude, and the instructor was amazing. He's hilarious. He said, honey, because I said to him, well, where do I take my clothes off? He's like, right here. And I was just like, right here? And he's like, yep, if you got a problem with that, you're in the wrong place. And the other model that was with me said to me, he says, just look at it as a freeing experience. And I was like, okay. So I just closed my eyes and took off my robe and struck a pose and just was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm actually doing this. But by the end of the class, it was just like, I come out of there and was just like, wanted to do the whole, yes, the leap in the air. I did it. Oh my gosh, I actually did do it. And it was empowering, very empowering.
I used to be extremely insecure about this type of stuff as well. Like, I wouldn't take my shirt off at the beach or anything like that. And then I have a friend of mine who is kind of a nudist, and he goes to this nude beach like all summer, and he was telling me about it, and he's very, very fascinating person, really interesting. He's a good friend, and he was like, come with me, just check it out. And I was like, and I'm a Sagittarius, right? And I don't know how much you believe in the star signs and all that, but I always say that I'll try anything once.
Yeah.
I'm very adventurous. I love to travel. I love new experiences. I'm constantly,
Me too.
I mean, this show literally is about new experiences, getting into different worlds and whatever. So I'm like, like, fuck it. I'm 25 years old. I'm young once. I'm whatever.
Do it now.
do it now. So he invited me to go to the nude beach with him. And it was, I was up there. I was like, sure, let's do it. Right. And I was like, I don't have to take my clothes off. I can just go for the experience, right? And after about 10 minutes of being there, I felt comfortable enough to take off my clothes.
Everybody else had theirs off. Why not?
Everyone else had their clothes off. Big, small, tall, short, fat, skinny,
Old.
black, white, green, purple, you name it. Every person was there. And it was just, I was like, oh, okay. And then I took off my clothes. And then after like 15 to 20 minutes in or whatever, I forgot. And it just felt so nice, like to be in the water and like connect with nature and really like, if you like focus on the fact that we're all human beings and we all have bodies and we're all kind of the same.
Exactly.
And people are not going home at night thinking about this body or that one. People are busy. They don't care. And it's like we hype ourselves up so much for it that it's almost like when you come in contact with your worst fear and then you realize it wasn't that scary and you're like I used to be petrified of needles. Petrified. And then I started, I had to like get blood tests or whatever it is. And I just looked the other way and it's like scroll on my phone. And I was like, oh, you're done. You psych yourself out for certain things when in reality, it's like, hey, this is me. This is a body.
I think too, like when we psych ourselves out like that, sometimes we have a tendency to then pull away from and not do things instead of just leaping into it. Just leap into life and do it.
I agree with that and I think that like the day that we start giving into our fears and our insecurities, that's the day that we stop living.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not saying do anything dangerous. I'm not saying put your life on the line, but I'm talking about those experiences, right? Like those saying yes to things. Like people are like, I got invited to go skydiving with a friend of mine up in New York. And I've really been contemplating it. And it's like one of those things that's like on everyone's bucket list. But like, how often do people actually call you up and offer you and be like, yo, let's go skydiving today?
And how many people actually go through with it?
How many people actually say yes? Right,
or
exactly.
go through with it.
Exactly. And I'm just like, I think I should do this because I don't want to like look back at the end of my life and be like, damn, I should have said yes when I was 25 and gone and jumped out of that plane.
Yeah.
So I love it. I love that we, that taking like life head on, going for it, doing the thing that scares you. Were you afraid going into that first class?
I don't think I was afraid. Hesitant.
What were your hesitance?
Well, my very first class, I really wasn't hesitant at all. Because my very first class, I had my clothes on.
It was like a portrait class?
It was a portrait class. I'd go in and sit, 25 minutes in one spot, and then continue that all day long.
And you're like, oh, this is easy. I just got to sit in a chair.
Oh, no, my neck hurt like hell, let me tell you. And so did my cheeks, because you got to keep that same, your facial expression has to stay the same. Everything has to stay the same.
That's why you got to go with the resting bitch face.
Yeah, or the tilt, or I've been told I have like this natural tilt, so I just naturally tilt to this, like, well, okay, it's silly because it hurts my neck, but it works for me. The second class, like I told you, that the first time I had to get nude was only my second class. So.
But it's kind of rip off the Band-Aid, get in there, do it, and then after that, like, the rest of them are just kind of easy,
Well, yeah. I wasn't sure if I could continue to do it. My age and the commute, and I was hesitant, thinking, I was self-doubt. I was doubting myself. I'm glad I stopped all that because I enjoy what I do.
Yeah, imposter syndrome is very real.
Yeah,
I've experienced
absolutely.
it. I experience it all the time as an actor, with this podcast, with any project that you do. It's like, why am I qualified to do this? Are you sure? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, my belief is that if you do something genuinely and you do something with passion and you do something authentically, then you're doing it authentically.
Yeah.
If you are not staying true to who you are, then yeah, you're a poser. But if you're real about and this is me, this is whatever. And again, we talk about that confidence. We talk about that, it's like, I always said that, like, the girl who's skinny being like, am I fat, versus the curvy woman who just rocks her body and just walks down the street strutting down and she's just confident in her, like,
right.
It's you notice that difference of people, and it all starts up here. It really, really all does.
It does.
So you came into this industry, and you started off with a class and you didn't know if you could continue on with it. When did you kind of reach that other side where you're like, all right, this is what I'm doing?
I think after about about a week or two, then I was like, you know what? I think I can do this. I'm going to, keep going and see how it goes. 'Cause, sometimes it's can be a little painful, limbs fall asleep. You can be standing there for 20 minutes and your toes fall asleep, just your toes.
Who are you telling? I'm dealing with a pinched nerve right now.
And things like that.
And I have no like feelings in my fingers
I've
and
got
stuff.
carpal tunnel in both hands, so it's kind of like.
There, you're speaking my language. I've been to the chiropractor 3 times in the last 2 days.
Oh yeah, and so, but I just kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and even that, I tell you, there were times where, like a year ago, I had my thyroid removed, and that surgery I'm still kind of recovering from, even a year later, and I thought, well, it's going to wipe me out, because I was very tired all the time and things like that. And I thought some of that was contributed to work, which it probably was, but some of it was medical. So now that I'm through that, I do feel a difference as far as I have more energy.
Really?
I don't ache as much, different things like that too. So when I was going through that and not knowing that that's what was wrong with me, because I just kept thinking, I had finished the summer session, which is somewhat harder because it's a constant every day. You're doing the summer school. So for like 6 weeks in a row, you're working every day, whereas during the fall and the spring semesters, you're going to have 3 or 4 classes a week. And sometimes you'll have a little bit more. I mean, I've done classes where I've done 8 classes or 9 classes in 1 week, and that's doing doubles, going from school to school all in one day.
Why bother even getting dressed between classes?
Well, there's laws against that, and driving down 695, you might cause an accident. You'll get your attention, all right?
I love it. You get pulled over by the cops, and you're like, what? What are you doing?
I'm sorry, I'm
you're
just
like,
in between
working.
classes. I'm working.
Yeah, I'm working. Like, ma'am, we're going to need you to put your tits away.
Yeah, really.
That's so funny.
But then once I realized that it was medically, then I was like, oh, I don't have to quit this. I don't have to stop. So I just, keep going.
Right, because I think that like a misconception. And first of all, I had a family member who also had their thyroid or half their thyroid removed, and it's it is a scary thing, especially the diagnosis and the whatever, and it can be the imbalance. So like I do empathize with that. I know that it's like a scary process, and I know that my family member since has been so much better.
Yeah.
I was actually just talking about it with them the other day, but I think that people, when they hear art model, they just assume, you kind of, even if it's, they know the nudity, you show up, you sit down on your stool, cross your legs, derobe, and space out for an hour while they draw you. And I think that misconception is like, there's actually a lot of physical activity involved in this job.
Oh, absolutely, because you have to maintain that pose. If you got an itch, you can't scratch it. You can breathe and blink, but you have to maintain that pose because you don't want to give them, it'll throw off, there's a special word for it, I'm drawing a blank on it right now, but you'll throw off their whole Consistency, yeah. Oh, yeah, and the instructors want that consistency.
So you're doing all these different art modeling for all these different schools, right?
Yes.
So walk me through a little bit of the different classes that you will partake in and what the actual work is. So I know that you mentioned earlier about all the different, the quick poses. But I can imagine it's probably different when you're doing sculpting class or.
Well, for a sculpture class, it's different because you're gonna do one pose all day long. They may not be doing your whole body. They may be doing a head study. They could be doing a leg study. So they're only gonna do your leg, or they'll do half of your body, or they'll do your whole body. And you're standing on a platform that rotates. So every minute, every 2 minutes, someone is turning that thing so they can get that 360 view of you without having to constantly move around the room.
Do you get dizzy?
No, I've never gotten dizzy. Nope. I know there's models that have fainted, fallen off of the stands, but It's never happened to me. I had a couple times I had an equilibrium issue where it was like when I was staring at something for so long, and then you go to move, and then the whole thing just kind of shifts, and your eyes go a little weird. But no, I've never had an issue. The only issue is things fall asleep. Like your toes will fall asleep,
Right.
or the tips of your fingers will fall asleep.
Have you ever fallen
And then you
asleep?
go to move. No, I've never fallen asleep. I've come close a couple times in the portrait class, because in the portrait class you're sitting. You sit in a chair, you find a focal point on a wall or something, and you just kind of stare at it all day long. And it's either 20 minutes, 25 minutes, a half an hour you're in that pose. You'll get a 10-minute break, and then you go back to that pose again. So for the portraits, it's kind of boring unless you're focusing on listening to the teacher and hearing what they're trying to say. Because like I said, you're staring at just one spot all day long. And quite a few people have fallen asleep. I've gotten close, but I haven't fallen asleep.
Yeah, I mean,
Not yet. I think one class I had, it was a summer class. I was laying on a couch, and my face was facing the couch. So my back was to the students. And the teacher said, you can fall asleep if you want to. But I didn't. But I should have probably at that point. That would have been a good time to do it. No one would have known.
Take a nap, right?
Yeah.
It's is there anything better than getting paid while you're sleeping, right?
Hey, you show up, stay still.
Yeah, but you're at college, right? So you're on a student's schedule.
Yes.
So like you have to show up later at the way
You gotta-
classes start 9
You have
a.m.
to show up. You have to be there at 9 a.m. Sometimes I'm there from 9:30 in the morning until 10:30 at night if I'm doing a double class that day.
But you know what's even funnier though? Like a lot of these students, they roll out of bed and show up, and if you roll out of bed and you got bedhead and your hair is like standing up on end,
Yeah.
that's ending
That's
up
what
in
they're
the,
drawing.
That's what they're drawing. They're drawing your, like
Yep.
the tiredness and just
Yep.
like snoring hungover.
Yeah.
It can be it. So what are some of the other challenges that you go through with being an art model?
Like I said, the stiffness of your body. It takes a toll on your body. I think the biggest challenge would probably be just making sure you get there on time. That's one of the biggest problems that art models have is punctuality.
Really?
I don't know why, because I'm pretty punctual. I like to be on time or early. But
It's an artist thing.
all
artists are late to everything.
None of us want to get out of bed at that time of the morning. I don't care who you are.
Literally. Do you ever wish you can like see, like imagine what it's like to meet yourself from a different person's perspective? Like what it's like to meet
Well, I
you?
think you kind of do. You kind of see that in their drawings. You see what they see from the outside. You don't. I don't know. It's different. We don't really do a lot, and it's sad, but there's not a lot of interaction that goes on. After we're done, you can walk around the room and see what they've drawn. But that's about as far as it goes, So you're getting to see what they're seeing, and then putting that on the paper. But I don't really think they see, deeper into you.
Right.
At least, I without speaking to someone, you can't really get that depth of a person.
Right, but like again, we had talked about the difference between drawing people versus fruit is that they're capturing your essence.
Yeah.
Right. So all pears taste the same, right?
No, I don't know.
All pears
Not
don't.
all fruit don't. No.
Well, all I'm saying like the same, like all bananas taste like bananas. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Versus every human has a different soul, a different essence, a different body, a different fingerprint. Each human is unique in the way that,
Right.
yeah, of course, you'll have some, but I'm saying a banana is a banana versus a human. Kind of, you do capture that, especially if like the human being has unique, markings, tattoos, piercings, hair. There's jewelry. Like, do they draw all of that as well? Are there rules with that?
They can draw all that. They can draw whatever they feel they need to draw. I was in one class in particular, I remember. And I don't remember exactly what I was going through at the time, but it was an illustration class. And they were drawing, like they have to crop out different parts. And some of the students were drawing my face. And halfway through the day, I remember the instructor saying to one of the students, I know that's changed. She said, she's been in a couple different moods tonight, hasn't she? So by the look on my face and different expressions on my face, she knew. Now, she's been doing it a long time, but she knew that I was going through something because she could see my different moods throughout the evening. So I wasn't able to kind of maintain that same, look on my face.
Right. And then with that individual, are there rules against, do they instruct you like about like, you can't wear this, well, not wear, but like tattoos, body hair?
No, there's really not any rules. I mean, there was a 70-year-old retired, I believe he was in education, model that worked there, who had tattoos and piercings everywhere. And I mean everywhere. So, no, I think they'd like a variety. They really do. There's a big variety of different models. Not all, as you can see, I mean, I'm not skinny. Now, there are, the thinner models. We have different nationalities. We have anybody you could think of. Transgender. It's all there.
Right.
Typical art scene, art college kind of scene.
I've never been to, like, I never went to college in general, but like the idea of it, right? Like you go to these liberal art colleges or whatever it is, and you get to see this diversity and you get to see these different
Absolutely.
like body, like for these young college kids, it's probably amazing for them. Once they get over that initial 5-minute giggle of like, oh my God, it's my first time seeing a penis. Aside from that, it probably helps them with their own, body image, and that they go like, oh
yeah,
this is what humans look like. Because, you do have to take into consideration that to some people, this might be their first time seeing someone nude.
And it is. We have a summer program where it's pre-college students. And
Like high school age.
High school students who come in and do our summer program, hoping to come to MICA eventually when they're of college age, once they finish high school. And there are quite a few when the hands go up when the instructor says, how many of you have never seen or never done a life drawing class? A lot of hands. Over 50% of the classroom will raise their hand that they've never done it before.
But even in their personal life, they may have never seen another nude person aside from themselves.
True.
So this might be like their first experience with it.
Right.
Which I'm sure can be, even if you're not nude, like what?
Intimidating.
Intimidating. Yeah. I remember, my first time seeing someone of the opposite sex naked, and it stays with you because it's,
it's a naked body.
It's a naked body, and we're human beings. And we're
supposed to cover that up.
You're telling me I grew up Orthodox Jewish. I know.
Yeah, you really did.
I was at
quite an awakening for you, was it?
I was underage, and my brother snuck me into a strip club, and may he rest in peace. We can edit that part out. No, but I've been shout out to my brother, my older brother. He passed away.
Sorry to hear that.
No, I know. Thank you. He passed away from cancer, but he was my, rock, and he was my ride or die. When I was, I think, 15, he took me to a strip club in Jersey, and we went, and like they ended up kicking us out. But it was because we were both underage.
They found out you were underage.
I looked like I was 15. I may have had some facial hair, but I did not look, above age. But when we made it in, it stayed with me all my life because it's your first experience.
Right.
And you gotta, especially if you're working with like, younger people with like high school age, with whatever, here's the thing. It's not necessarily sexual in nature, but it is delicate.
Yes.
It's a delicate conversation, and it's a delicate thing because it can go wrong, right?
Oh, absolutely. You don't know. I mean, first of all, you're on a college campus. College campuses are known to be vulnerable places for things to go wrong. And the concern with the fact that you're standing there taking your clothes off in front of students, you don't know who the students are. You don't know where they are mentally. Things could go wrong really easily. I've never had an issue ever. Never been harassed or never been, secretly, can you come do a private posing for me? None of that. Never had any of that. But I'm sure there's a few out there that have had it. And the word will get around, not who to work with. But it definitely makes you vulnerable because you don't know what could happen outside of that class. So in that aspect, yeah. But like I've said, I've never had the issue, but I do know of a few that have had some issues where they were like, campus safety, can you walk me to my car, kind of thing.
But does that happen though? Let's say like in a class where it does kind of maybe turn sexual, or whether it be a student or an instructor or someone who makes a comment or says something, or that they're looking at you not in an art way. What do you do in a situation like that?
Ignore it.
You just but are you able to sense it
and get away from the situation? I've never had it, so I don't know if... I would think I'd be able to pick up on it, considering I'm a little older, so I've got a little bit more under my belt as far as how human beings can behave. But there's definitely things there to kind of, prevent that. Not prevent it. Not that you could ever prevent anyone from doing something wrong, but you just... I don't know. I would just kind of look through it, overlook it, because they're young.
Stay professional.
Stay
and
professional.
just kind of
go with it. If you feel
remove yourself from the art.
Yeah, remove yourself, and then just quickly remove yourself from the environment once you're done, with the class.
But you were saying earlier about how a lot of times you would be posing along with other art models.
Right, male, female.
So does it ever happen in a situation where like a male model you're posing with would get aroused in the middle of a session?
I've never had that happen. Not that I was aware of.
Because
no.
I don't know what would he do in that situation?
I don't know. Do the quadratic formula, get it out of your head, something. I don't know.
Or on the flip side, like, this is also part of nature.
True.
And you know what? Draw away. You know
True.
what I mean? Like, you can turn it on its head and be like, this is natural. We're drawing natural whatever. And, the male form,
and
aroused, unaroused, can be beautiful for an artist to draw as well.
Absolutely. And, I've seen students draw an erection when it wasn't there, so.
Oh, you see? Phantom erections where they're adding, because
they've added to it, and it's like, he is not like that. He does not have it going on like that. But again,
it's the perception of you.
It's the perception of the person.
It's the perception.
Drawing.
The same way that they can do the eyeball up here, or they can make you thinner, or they can name you whatever it is that they want to call you. They can draw it erect because this is their art, and that's what they're seeing, and that's kind of. I imagine if everything in moderation in a way, and everything can be done correctly. And in a case like this, like I, again, grew up without any of this stuff, right? So when I first learned about it, my initial thought was like, wow, that's crazy, But once I had to like unlearn a lot of the stuff that I had learned as a kid, and no shame or shade to the religion, but you grew up in a bubble, right? You grew up in a very, very, very
sterile
bubble where nothing gets infiltrated. I wasn't allowed to watch movies or go into a library or anything like that. So it was a little bit more extreme. And then you hear of like these liberal colleges where they do this stuff. It sounds bonkers, but then once you kind of live in the real world for a bit and you're like, oh, it's not so scary. Oh, it's okay. It's a learning experience. Oh, I kind of wish that I had these experiences, because then, it would have set me up for, my own body or for my own preconceived notions or convictions or whatever it is. Right. It's just a very, again, delicate subject, but it's an interesting subject, that people shouldn't shy away from.
No.
What about you? You were saying earlier about how you don't necessarily like being on camera, right? Like you don't like posing for pictures. Do they have like photography classes as well? Like,
Yes, I've done photography. And that was actually in that instant, in that setting, I enjoyed myself more so than I did. And I don't know if it's because you prepare your mind for what you're about to do. So going into it, you're kind of like, okay, this is a different part of my persona, and this is the door I'm going to walk through right now. So when I went in to do the photography, I was psyched. And I don't like having my actual picture taking, like, you know, when you take your little snapshots of your I never thought I was photogenic. So I was like, I don't like having my picture taken. But when I was doing that, I don't know if it was because I opened myself up for vulnerability.
yeah.
I was doing it with another woman, and it was really interesting. I enjoyed doing it in that aspect. I kind of got into it. You kind of become that character, even though it's not a character.
100%. It's tapping into that inner artist. But
Yeah.
my sister, who I quote so much because I love her, Liba, who's an art therapist. You know, she's starting off in her career, and we're gonna have her on the show one day. I'm very excited for it.
Wonderful field.
Amazing
really,
field. I cannot wait for that episode. I
art
cannot
therapy,
wait. I've been delving into it.
Absolutely. The daughter that I had that introduced me to all this, I became a widow at 35 with 6 kids.
Oh my.
My
Sorry.
youngest was 1.5, and my oldest was a junior in high school. And my daughter, that I was telling, the artist, she stopped talking. She just regressed into herself big time. She was, I think, 10, 9, 8, something like that. And art therapy was the best thing I could have ever done for that child. Better than the therapist, and even her therapist said, "Well, I don't know about this art thing." Wonderful. I would recommend it highly to anyone that has a kid that's into art.
I've been dabbling with it, and it really has been unleashing so many parts of me where I was like, I didn't know. But she quotes all the time. She said, "There's no such thing as not being photogenic. There's only a thing of whether or not you're comfortable on camera.
Right.
And if you feel confident and comfortable, it will show up. If you don't feel like being on camera, it will show up."
Oh, absolutely.
And it's really about how comfortable they're making you feel. It's about how comfortable you feel, and it translates because it's, you know, capturing you essentially. But doing photography though, did you have more hesitation to that because like there's a chance of that like ending up on the internet or leaking? It's not a sketch in an artist's sketchbook.
Well, it was in a controlled environment. It's in a college classes. I really didn't think about those things actually when I was doing it. As far as being up on the internet and things like I didn't. It didn't cross my mind. For me, it was just another assignment. I was just happy to do it.
So outside of, let's say, college, right? If somebody wanted to hire you to take nude photos and it wasn't a controlled environment,
right?
You know, or if it did end up on the internet, like, do you feel one type of way about that over the other?
It's a different pay scale. It's a better pay scale.
It's all about the money.
It's a higher pay scale.
All about the money. So then,
yeah, right now we're doing classes through Zoom, but they are clothed. Scantily clothed, but we're still clothed. So, because you don't know what the students could do with any of those. So, in a college setting, things like that, the way we're doing things now, I would definitely, I don't think I would be doing it nude in that aspect. If it was to get out there or somebody did take pictures and do it, well, okay. Not that much you can do once it's done.
Right. It's not like your job is going to be in jeopardy.
No,
it's not like you have anything to lose.
No. And I don't know. Like I said, it's a different pay scale. So
right. But I mean, even let's say, for example, so talking about a higher pay scale, what about porn? Would you be open to doing porn, or is that to you not?
I've been offered.
Okay.
I've been asked to do it, and I have yet to do it. I don't know. At my age, I probably, if I was maybe 20, 30, 10, 15, 20 years younger, maybe. Who knows?
Right.
I think that's interesting too as well. But not now. I don't think I would. I'm old. I'm over 55, so it's like, yeah, well.
I love it. No, I mean, look, not that there is. First of all, I would love
Elder porn. Oh yeah, there's a thought.
I mean, look. First of all,
I know it probably exists. It probably does exist.
Everything exists. Every pot has a lid. If there is there's everything out there. Someone's into it. You know.
I know.
I'm a firm believer in that. There's no such thing as ugly. There's just not my type.
Yeah.
You know, but. To me, though, the difference is that like you keep talking about considering yourself an artist. I don't really look at porn as an art. I mean, it is a performance.
Well, I spent 30 years in the adult entertainment industry.
You did?
Yes.
What did you do?
I owned a massage parlor.
Okay.
And back years ago, the porn was it's I think it's because its popularity bloomed like it did, and then the internet hit. So anybody and everybody is doing porn. So it's taken away from that artisticness that I believe used to be there. It's just, I don't know. I don't know the word I'm looking for right now, but it's well, everywhere.
Right.
So back in the day, like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it wasn't out there like it is. It was all so taboo. And when it became not so much taboo, anyone and their brothers doing it. So it became that.
Doing it or watching it?
Both.
Right, because it's more accessible nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Meaning
the internet
back in
and
the
things
day.
brought it more accessible.
Back in the day.
And also along with that made it more, not so much of the yuck factor. Like it was something that was horrible that people were doing.
Right, because back in the day, it used to be that you would have to get your nudie magazines, and you would sneak into the whatever, and then you have to go to the restricted section of the DVD part. And now people are on the New York subway just watching porn out in the open, and they're like, if you don't like it, move.
Exactly.
So it's definitely moved. The needle.
It's taken its secrecy away a little bit. Its intrigue is not what there anymore.
But it again, it does seem though that the art modeling does have that level of intrigue because it's not sexual in nature.
It can.
It's nudity without it being sexual, kind of like the nude beach experience that I told you about earlier, where it's against the law to have, and they have police patrolling it. It's against the law to be sexual on the beach.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't even touch yourself.
And well, it should be actually, because I've been to a nude beach, and there were children there. I was kind of like, I don't know about the kids. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, let's move them away.
That is pushing the line a little bit.
So, and to do something, because I think in the nudist colony kind of nude beach scenario, everyone's there for the same reason, and it's not to try and hook up. Right. It's just to have that freeing experience.
Right. I mean, human beings, we're born naked. Clothing is a human construct.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you really, really, I was actually thinking about this the other day of what if we, we're always trying to advance as humans with technology and with whatever. It's like, what if we tried to go back, right? And we started to really, really tap into our animalistic instincts, where we started to just graze in the field, live outside in the woods.
Yeah, chariots of fire. Isn't that
all that? Like, would human quality of life be better if we lived like deer in the woods? I had this thought the other day, and I was kind of imagining what humanity would look like if we stopped being so human and started tapping into more of our animalistic instincts and just kind of being more free, right? Because I had the thought of if you were the last human being on Earth and there were no other people, what would you stop doing? Right? Clothing, that's probably one of them, right? Maybe shoes to protect your feet, but we wear clothes for other people.
Well, look, what's one of the first things you do when you go home? If you're the 9-to-5er in the monkey suit, I call it, the tie and everything, the first thing you want to do is start shedding your clothing. For a woman, the first thing I want to do, that's what I was going to say. The first thing I want to do is, let the girls fly free because they're tired of being cooped up all day. off it comes.
It's not healthy to wear a bra. Apparently, I wouldn't know, but I know
I'm more comfortable without one.
again, I keep quoting my sister, but she doesn't she's known for it. She's just all my sisters, my family. We're all very like, just be free,
Yeah.
be who you are. You know, don't wear any underwear, whatever. Like it's more natural. We're meant to be more free and more natural and more in touch with ourselves. And like when I worked for corporate, I hated it. I hated the clothing, like the tie or the suit every day. Like, be free. Like my go-to sweatpants, t-shirt, sneakers. You know, it's so I sleep naked.
Yep, me too.
It's like the I don't know how you
I
don't.
can't sleep with clothing on.
Yeah. Oh my God. It doesn't. There's something about nudity with humanity that it's so taboo, but also yet so
Natural.
natural. Do you consider yourself a nudist?
Not really. I mean, I don't. I mean, I put clothes on every day. You know, I don't walk around my house like, you know, some of them do. Though you were there, just nothing on, and once they get inside their home, that's the way it is. I don't really consider myself a nudist.
So to you,
Not
it's
really.
more of work is work. You leave
Right.
work at work, and then you go on about your day wherever you
Yeah.
are. Has this ever affected your life negatively, where you've had like judgmental neighbors or family members who stopped talking to you, or affected like dating, right? Like I can imagine.
Well, for me, luckily, my other half was a part. Now, he's not an artist by any means, but like I said, his father taught for 50 years at the school that I work at.
Mhm.
So he's part of that world. So he knew going into this what my job would entail. He himself was an art model as a child.
They do nude art modeling for children.
You're talking 40 years ago.
The world was very different.
And the world was very different. And yes, I believe he was nude. In fact, I believe what stopped it was the fact that he started to reach puberty. And like you were asking earlier about the erection thing.
Right.
I don't know that for sure. But the stories that I've heard, I believe that's probably what stopped him from from modeling. Because it became obvious that.
Right. I mean, to me, I don't know what life was like 40 years ago. To me, though, it's like if
he
children...
was 15, 14, 12,
Right.
13, something like that.
I mean,
so he was older. And and like I said, his dad was part of that world. So for them, it wasn't anything sexual. They just wanted somebody to draw.
Right.
So.
I guess, I don't know. I guess I have like, different opinions about
Oh,
that. But I think that the world...
I wouldn't have
does
allowed
it
my
happen,
child to do it.
does it still happen today? That they'll
No,
have-
I don't
right,
think
okay.
so. I don't think so. I've never heard of it. I mean, that was the one and only time I ever actually heard of it. That, yeah, he used to art model. Now, I don't know, but I've never heard of it after that.
But so it doesn't like get in the way of your
No.
relationship.
No,
But you know what?
no.
I can imagine though that if you...
I could see where it would for some people.
Yeah, but at the same time, and again, this is just me speculating, that if somebody is going to do this as a career and they're going to choose to do it as a career, they're probably going to choose a partner that is open-minded to someone
Right.
doing this as a career. And I want to interview a porn star really, really badly because I'm fascinated with the world of it and the job of it and what
Right.
it entails. And again, like relationships, like do you enjoy... I mean, I'll save that for the porn episode that I do. But it's true though. Have you never received any backlash, or were you ever hesitant to tell anybody about what you did or what you do?
No.
You just own it.
No, I own it. I mean, and that's with anything you do in life. You got to own it. Because if you don't own it, it's not really a part of you.
Right.
You know, you don't get to really, truly put yourself out there. So you're not being authentic.
You're not being authentic. I love that. There's a quote. It's you can't fake authenticity. Either you are or you're not. And if you're inauthentic about what you're doing, and it's like, make your choices, live with them, be who you are. This is me.
Yeah.
That's it. There's
Yeah.
no
Take it
other,
or leave it.
There's no other way to be. Have you ever done this outside of colleges? Have you ever worked posing as an art model for private clients?
I've advertised for it to try and get them. but I've only been able to successfully do it one time. And I actually honestly think that was a police officer thinking I was more than just an art model. It just, the whole way the scenario went, it was just really weird. And he was a little creepy, actually, showing me pictures of him when he was younger and things like that, and asked me if I would want to run through the woods nude. And I'm like thinking, this is not exactly what I thought it was going to be. So I just politely just let the hour go and left.
As long as the check cleared, right?
Yeah, no, I was cash.
But how do you weed out the ones who are genuine artists versus the ones that are just kind of...
Well, I guess it depends on, well, for me, a good thing is, are you affiliated with a school? Are you affiliated with, and then they can lie. Some kind of school ID of some kind, like faculty ID, things like that. You can kind of verify those things. But like I said, I only ever had one person ever really take, say, hey, I would like to draw you. Will you come let me draw you? And then I just kind of dropped the ball because I thought there's too many creeps. Because
right.
Of the ones that I did have respond, it all within, I'd say 5 or 10 minutes of a phone conversation, you can kind of tell where it's leading. They'll lead into, well, will you do other things for more money, blah, blah, blah. Nope, bye, see you later, click. Just hang up. Because they are out there. I'm not looking. You're looking for that? Well, call an escort. Sorry.
Which is, yeah. No, I mean, again, it's a fine line. It's a delicate subject. It's about maintaining that balance of where it's...
And it's about being a professional, what kind of professional you want to be,
What's the longest that you ever stayed in one position for posing for something?
About an hour and a half.
With no movement?
No movement, no. We had an instructor who, towards the end of the semester, she had forgotten to cancel the models.
Okay.
And I was taking some college classes. So I had a book that I needed to finish for my English writing class. And she was like, well, okay, I'm not going to cancel. Why don't you just strike a pose? And she was actually the one drawing me. Wasn't the students. They had the option to. But she ended up drawing me. Mm-hmm. So I just sat there in that position. And I was clothed, too, for this one. So I don't know if it was because I was just more, I don't know. Anyway, we lost track of time. And the other model that was there for the class that day, he never ended up modeling, at least not that I'm aware of. I don't know. He might have after I left. But because, like I said, she was going to cancel us all for the day. Well, we get paid anyway, whether they cancel us or not. So I thought, well, I'll just stay. So I got into the post.
I would be like, I'm getting paid anyway. I'm out of here.
Well, because then she changed her mind, and I kind of felt like obligated to stay because I was already there. And okay. So I just sat down and started reading my book. And like I said, we lost track of time. Well, the other model was timing it. We didn't know it. So she's like, oh, my goodness, like, we've been sitting here for a really long time. And I'm like, yeah. So Warren says, yeah, you've been there for almost an hour and a half. And she was like, oh, my God, Melissa, I am so sorry. She said, you can go. So I just grabbed my book and left. But that was the longest, an hour and a half, sat still without moving. All I was doing was turning pages and reading.
So you can't itch, but you can turn a page.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can bring props with you to these.
Yeah. Yeah.
What other kind of props do people bring? Like
books, sticks. We have these sticks that we hold, and we can kind of use like a kind of a walking stick kind of thing, where we actually use it to kind of like in our pose, and we can also like just lean on it when we're starting to feel that we're we don't want to move.
You want to fall over.
You don't want to fall over, but you're getting tired. The stick is here. It's like, okay, well, if I lean a little bit, just a hair this way, it'll relieve the pain in my leg. I'll lean back this other way, and that pain comes back. I'll go back this way. And you just kind of, they bring other things like flowers, plants. They use mannequin body parts. different objects that
That's
are different
so
sizes
odd.
and shapes. It is.
So you can be like laying there with other body parts or other models, and
Yeah,
did they ever have that like where you'll be like posing with another model?
on the same stand. Yes. Um, I've had where we were laying face opposite, like my face was up here, their face was
Oh,
down
okay, like
here,
yeah, I've seen
back
that.
and forth, like in a row, and there was like 5 of us laying like that opposite each
And
other.
this is all nude.
All nude, all up on the model stand. And in fact, some of the students created like a scaffolding kind of thing with the desks so they could get a view of looking down on us. Because the model platforms are about 18 inches off of the ground. But when you're sitting down at an easel, it kind of looks like you're looking down. So they created this, I guess it's scaffolding thing. It was kind of cool, actually. So they stacked the tables so they could see down on us.
But that's really like very very. Is that like a little too close for comfort with your coworkers? You know, like laying
Not if you're
there.
comfortable with if you're comfortable with your coworkers. I mean, we were all comfortable, and we've all worked together doing this for years. So I believe that when like the model coordinator is trying to figure out who to put with what class, she takes those things into consideration. Like, who can I put with this person? Because there are art models that, like, there's I can think of one male and one female in particular who don't like working with other people.
Are they a couple in real life?
No.
Do couples pose
But
together sometimes?
Yes, we've had couples. In fact, she was my boss. Her and her husband actually started doing it. They were doing it together. There was another young couple when I first started 6 years ago. They were college students. They were both students there. And then they got married while they were at MICA. And they went on. I believe they're still doing
Oh,
it.
that's a love story. How'd you guys meet?
Yeah.
Well, we were naked together in this class.
Yeah.
We just locked eyes and
Couldn't help it.
couldn't know.
The chemistry was there immediately. Yeah.
Literally. So you've been doing this for about 6 years now.
Yes.
And I'm sure that you've had. Is there a lot of like turnover in this industry where people will come in, think that they can do it, and then like how long does do the newbies last?
Just a few weeks.
Just
It
a
only
few
takes a
weeks.
couple classes for them to realize that they can't do it. They don't want to do it. And I've even had we have a lot of student workers that also do it. And obviously they're younger. They're 18, 19 years old. And I've had one actually look at me and say, oh, well, if you can do it, I can do it. And halfway through the class, which about an hour, 2 hours into it, she's like, oh my God, how do you do this? And I'm like, concentrate. I don't know what to tell you. And it was this, to myself, I was thinking, that's what you get. It's that overconfident pool shot, like you can play pool and be really, really good at it. And you have that one shot that you're like, oh yeah, I got this. Bang. And they hit it and they miss.
Yeah.
So it's like, don't be so confident, because it's a lot harder than you think.
Because I think that a lot of people, at least my assumption.
It's the standing still.
Right, because
It's to be able to concentrate enough that you don't move.
Because people, I believe, and this is me just talking to you, is that they think that the biggest hurdle is the nudity, when in fact that's the easiest part.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it takes that like stamina, and it takes concentration, and it takes physical poses, and
dedication,
changing poses, and sitting
creativity.
still. And young people, you may have a snatched body, but if you have the attention span of a housefly, you're not going to last a minute.
Absolutely.
This has just been really, really eye-opening having this conversation with you today. First of all, you're extremely fascinating to talk to. You're extremely brave, which I don't think that you should be considered brave for just being confident and being yourself, because, again, I could never do it. Yes, I went to that beach that one time, and it was a cool experience, but I was naked with everyone else.
Right.
I don't know that I could do it day after day after day and having people stare at you. But again, like once you really get over that initial hurdle, I'm sure it does, get easier or whatever. But I still think that is very, very, very cool that what you do. You know,
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really, really been an eye-opening conversation. I really appreciate you being here on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And then, you know, it's just, again, like, after this conversation, I realized, though, it's like, we're all human. We all have bodies. We're all the same. We are who we are. I always like to end each episode with advice for people wanting to get into the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you tell people who are, after listening to this episode and thinking that this is something that they want to do?
Educate yourself. There are books that will, there's modeling books for art models. Go sign them out. Try and practice it yourself. Get yourself an egg timer and strike a pose and see if you can do it for any length of time without moving, and have fun with it when you do. Don't go in being afraid or thinking, well, am I the right size? Am I the right height? Does my hair look good? A lot of our classes, I don't even have to wear makeup because they just want that natural look. Now, you know, of course, you make sure you shower and things like that, but for the most part, it's just a matter of not being afraid of yourself, and just, if you have to, create your character.
Be confident.
Be confident. Be confident. And just know that they're not there critiquing whether or not you have a nice boobs or a nice ass. They just want to be able to see where your curves are. And to capture your essence of who you are, and just have fun with it. Don't be so scared, so to speak, for a word.
Own it.
Own it.
Own your body.
Absolutely.
Own yourself.
Own it.
I love it. I really, really do.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you for having
today.
me.
Honestly, it was a pleasure talking to you. I hope to have you again on the
Absolutely.
show. You know, we can do part
anytime.
2, part 3. This has been amazing. Thank you to you at home for listening or watching this episode. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to like us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. It's My Job to Know Yours. Twitter, it's My Job Podcast. It's going to be all linked down below. You can follow me personally, The Red Younger, on Instagram, Red Younger on Facebook. You know where to find us. Leave a comment, leave a shout. Tell me what you thought of the episode. We'd love to hear back from you. And as always, I'm Red Younger, and this is It's My Job to Know Yours. Thanks. Well, I just did my job, so now it's time for you to do your job, which is to hit that subscribe button. Because if you don't do your job, I'm going to lose my job, and let's face it, I'm qualified for nothing.